Well, I generally come in at least 15 minutes late. I use the side door. That way Lumberg can't see me. And after that, I just sort of space out for about an hour.
Space out?
Yeah, I just stare at my desk. But it looks like I'm working.
Meritocracy means that a society, corporation, or organization is ruled by merit, which is usually linked to people's talents at performing well in jobs, roles, or tasks. But is meritocracy really the best and most fair system of hiring people? Logically, you could say that if someone is talented at doing something, that is a good reason to hire them, so it's not the worst system. But is it a fair system, or does it need something to balance it out? I would argue that it's not entirely fair. Let me explain why. The word meritocracy became popular largely due to the 1958 satirical novel called The Rise of Meritocracy by sociologist and politician Michael Dunlop Young. It describes a future dystopian society in the UK where merit, or IQ plus effort, has become the central tenet of society. It has replaced previous divisions of social class and created a society where a meritorious elite hold all the power and an underclass of the less meritorious live in disenfranchised poverty. The reason I believe people think meritocracy is morally fair is because of the just world fallacy. It's the idea that anyone who works hard enough will succeed or at least get rewarded according to their efforts. But in reality, things don't work out that way. The world is not just. Let's take, for example, a high school basketball team where two students are competing for the last position on the team. One student is John, who is 6 foot 7 inches tall, and the other student is Bill, who is 5 foot 9 inches tall. Both students are in good physical shape. John knows the basics of basketball and has some natural talent, but he is not very interested in the sport, only playing sometimes on weekends with his friends. John wants to be part of the team for extra school credit and also for the chance at getting a scholarship for college. Bill, on the other hand, is genuinely interested in basketball. He watches many games on TV and live in the stadium and studies basketball tactics and history and that kind of stuff, and also plays the sport regularly with his friends. So who will the basketball coach choose for the team? Logically, the coach wants the player who is more likely to win games for his team, and thus would probably pick John. If John and Bill played against each other, then John would probably win most of the time, because his height and size advantage alone guarantees that. If John got serious about the sport, he could have a real chance at becoming a professional player, whereas Bill is destined to play the sport as a hobby, despite his interest and efforts to study basketball. Did John do anything to earn his height and size advantage or his natural talent that makes him more likely to be a good player? No, he was simply lucky to inherit the correct genetics and to be born into a situation where his family could afford to feed him the right amount of food to fuel his physical growth. Bill, on the other hand, was not so lucky in the genetic lottery, at least not when it comes to playing basketball. The same is likely true for a lot of other sports, professions, academia, and even dating. People say that we can study and practice various things to increase our intelligence, creativity, and skills, and obviously that is true to some degree, but we are still limited by our physical hardware, the brain and the body. Humans are not clones. Some people are good at basketball, others are good at programming, some are good at cooking, others are good at painting, but there are those that just lost the life lottery and they're not really good at anything despite their best efforts and intentions to improve. Getting good grades and qualifications is thus out of reach for many people due to no fault of their own. Some of it also depends on what stage our society is at in regards to what talents are in demand. 200 years ago, it was arguably more important to be strong and have good physical endurance than it was to be book smart, because then you could be useful farming in the fields or defending your country as a soldier. Today, cognitive skills and creativity are more important due to how machines have taken over a lot of the hard manual labor jobs that used to require physical strength and endurance. But perhaps artificial intelligence will change the game when it comes to a lot of cognitive and creative skills, who knows. Things always change, and maybe every dog has their day. So I think that while meritocracy can be useful, it is not a perfect system. My main problem with meritocracy is that its adherents often blame people for not having whatever talents or attributes that are currently in demand in society. This is obviously not fair because often these things are simply out of reach. This judgment can of course encourage people to do better, but at some point it becomes rather pointless. In our basketball team example, it would be like blaming Bill for not being tall like John, but people don't see this connection. This is why I am not entirely against nepotism, and I support some level of social welfare. That kind of balances the situation out a little bit. I mean, what are these so-called low performers going to do if they are not competitive in a meritocracy? Just lay down and die, or turn to a life of crime? I think it's probably cheaper to just give them some neat bucks. Remember to like and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you agree or disagree? See you in the next video. Okay, thanks, bye.